Good evening. My name is Tracy Matheson, and I am in Tara Jackson's small group. As I scrolled through social media in August, I was reminded of a photo from 7 years prior. It was a photo of my daughter, Molly Jane, sitting in the middle of a parking spot we painted her senior year of high school. One of the things we painted were the words from Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. At the time, it was a lovely reminder of a precious memory of a special time with Molly. A few weeks later, I started BSF, and all I really knew was the focus of the study was the people of the Promised Land, and I had no idea what that really meant. The very first lesson we read from Joshua 1, and I was reminded of God's promise to Joshua. It is a promise that has meant more to me in the 24 months since Molly's murder than it ever has before. He will never leave me, and even more importantly, he never left Molly. He was with her, and she was not alone. I knew I was exactly where I needed to be as I started my second BSF study. In October, I was planning a fundraising event. The week before the event, something that seemed disastrous happened. It just so happened this all took place on a Monday after BSF, and the theme of that evening's discussion was from Joshua and how God keeps his promises every time, and he cares about the details. As I went to bed that evening and I struggled to sleep, I prayed. I told God I knew he was a God who kept his promises, and I needed him to keep this promise. I also reminded myself he cares about the details. The next morning, I was led to a woman who was an honest-to-goodness answer to prayer. Her name was Graciela. The night before, my husband was speaking on the phone to the person who created the chaos, and he asked out loud, "Can we please find a little grace?" Graciela means little grace. God is most definitely in the details in this one. He did not send me a Mary or a Cindy or a Julie. He sent me a Graciela. As our study continued, we were directed to read Psalm 23. We were asked to identify which aspect of God's care is most meaningful. I answered, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. It was an easy answer because it is the greatest reminder for a mother whose child has been murdered. It was even more simple to answer because Molly had actually circled it herself in her very own Bible. Again, I was reminded that he is with me and she is with him, and this assurance gives me the strength and courage to face each day. As we began our study in Proverbs, it happened to coincide with our journey to get legislation passed in Austin. Almost since Molly was murdered, I knew we needed to write a law that would make sure that what happened to her does not happen to another person. That process is a lengthy one, especially since the Texas legislature only meets every 2 years. It also became clear to me that things in Austin do not happen quickly, and most certainly not according to my time schedule. April 1st, our group discussion was about wisdom. I learned that perfect wisdom is an attribute of God's, and wisdom begins with a right view of God. I left class and focused on God's wisdom as it related to our bill becoming Molly Jane's law. The very next day, I was told I needed to have realistic expectations and that it might not happen this session. I remained frustrated that things had not worked more swiftly and that the end of session was creeping closer and closer with each passing day. I continued to turn to God and ask for his wisdom and trusted he had a plan that was far greater than my own. Later that week, I was told that the Homeland Security Committee was planning to hear my testimony on April 10th, the second anniversary of Molly's murder. It clearly was God's work and wisdom that this day just happened to be the day that the ball officially began rolling. House Bill 3106 is now in the Senate, and we are very confident it will become Molly Jane's law. These are just a few of the many, many ways I have seen God demonstrate his faithfulness to me. I do not know why Molly picked that verse to paint on her parking spot more than 7 years ago. I do not know why her life had to end when it did in the way that it had to end. I do know he is with me. His presence in my life gives me a strength and a courage I did not know existed. The only reason I get out of bed each morning is because of his love and his grace, and the fact that he is a father who keeps his promises. Every one, every time. Thank you very much.